Welcome to video 14 in series 3, and in this video I'll show you how to access scripts from other scripts, and I'll use the walkthrough wall script as an example. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the my trigger, so when the player walks into it, the trigger example script will have a reference to the wall to begin with. It will access the component walkthrough wall, run a method that will change the layer of the wall. So I'll show you how to do that. I need to change both scripts, the walkthrough wall, and the trigger example script. So I'll start with the walkthrough wall script to begin with. Currently I have the onEnable, onDisable methods. I won't be using them now. Now I'll have my own public methods. So I'll say public void, public, so that the method is accessible from another script. So that's important. Public void set layer to not solid. Okay. And I'll make another method. Public void set layer to default. Alright, and then I'll just copy these. Then I'll just comment all this out. Alright, so that script is ready, walkthrough wall. Now, of course, I won't do anything. These functions are not run. I need to call them in order for these instructions to happen. So I'll go back to my trigger example script, which I have open, and I'll comment this out because I won't be doing it that way anymore. In fact, in order to access the script which is on the wall game object, this walkthrough wall, I must have a reference to it first. I could do that by writing public game object something, for example, and then slotting it in the inspector, and then accessing the walkthrough wall component, and then running the method. That's one way to do it, but I'm just going to do it as a private. I'll actually search for the game object when the game starts, and so I'll just call this, well, in fact I will hold a reference directly to the script. So walkthrough wall script, that's what I'll call it. I'll have a new method here, void set initial references, and then I'll access the game object. I'll store a reference to it. I'll find the game object, store a reference to the walkthrough wall script component that's on that game object. So here's how you do it. There's game object.find. I know it's called wall. Then I'll say get component walkthrough wall. That's how you do it. Now, there's a fair chance I may change the name of the game object, or I may remove the component walkthrough wall. Well, I'll first work towards the first possible failure, which is if. So I'll try and counteract that. If game object.find wall is not equal to null, then I'll carry out these instructions. Okay, and I could do another check if I wanted to. Does it have that component? But I won't bother. I'll leave it there. Then I'll add in back the start function. So this is the default Unity method here, and I'll set my initial references. Okay, now it's time to access that other script. So I've got a reference to it now, so I'll establish a reference when I start the game. This will get called. It'll store a reference to the walkthrough wall component on the wall. So why don't I go ahead and run code when the onTrigger enter is called. So what I will say is walkthrough wall script dot set layer to not solid. So you see the method that I wrote here? It is now accessible to us. We can access it and run it. Alright, so let me just do that. Dot set layer to not solid. And you need to put the brackets, remember that. whenever you call a method. And I'll make my life easy. I'll just copy that. I'll comment this out. And this time it's set layer to default. And I'm just going to disable the onTriggerStay method. And that is pretty much it. So if I go back to Unity and I hit play, I'll watch there. The layer of the wall is currently default. I walk into the cube, it's not solid. I walk out, it becomes default. I walk in, it's not solid. I walk out, it's default. Alright, so it's working just fine. Okay, now, of course, this was a very contrived example. And let's say, for example, you had many walls. Let's say there were like 100 walls, and you wanted all of them to change layer when you walked into the trigger. Are you going to then find all of these walls and access the walk-through wall component and run the function? Would you do it that way? No, you wouldn't do it that way. That would be very hard and inefficient. I'll show you later in this chapter 1 how to use events. So you would use a single event. All the walls, their scripts will be subscribing to the event. You just walk into the trigger, call the event, and they'll all respond to that event. I'll show you that later. But in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'll show you how to change the color of the material that's on the wall using the trigger. So instead of just changing the layer, I'll also change the color and transparency, and I'll just show you a little bit about materials in the next video. Alright, so just to recap what was done, I edited both of the scripts, the walk-through wall script. I added 2 new public methods which can be accessed, and they simply did what was done previously. Simply one sets the layer to not solid, and the other method sets it to default. I then, in the trigger example script, set a hard reference to the walk-through wall script by first of all finding the game object called wall, then getting that component and just storing a reference to it. Then in onTriggerEnter, I set the layer to not solid by calling that method, and in exit I set it to default by calling that method. So it was really simple. But as I mentioned, it's really not suitable for something like if you've got lots of walls, then it's not suitable to do accessing that way and setting stuff that way, and you should use a different system like events to do that. But anyway, that's all for later, so thanks for watching and see you in the next video.